Yeah. One last question on the Gaza issue. There was a report that there was supposed to be peacekeeping troops on the ground by various Arab states. And some of the reporting came out that this most likely wasn't going to happen, that they were bothered by the prospect that they were helping Israel if they did this. This was right here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this was on Israeli media that it came out with. It's funny how Israeli media brings up the stuff in American media and doesn't touch it. Fearing the conflict with Hamas, countries refuse to send soldiers. Yeah, it's amazing, right? They would admit stuff that you would never hear in American media.
They probably have a direct hotline into the New York Times. I would almost bet on that.
Would they?
Israel.
So, give me your take on this. I mean, do you think that this ultimately is going to take place, this quote unquote peacekeeping force that they were referring to at one point? Either one of you can jump in on this.
Well, I don't think the Arab states will do anything to that impact. Even the King of Jordan, who's the most hard pressed and the most difficult situation immediately, because as Kushner and Witkoff said, we're going to push a few of these Palestinians over onto Jordan. Right. They got plenty of room. Even he, I think, at the last moment, if he sees, and this is critical, they've got to see, as Israel is under maximum duress, which they will be if they re-engage with Iran, he's got to see America holding fire. If that happens, they will go in with a vengeance, and it is the end of the state of Israel.
Wait, what do you mean America holding fire? You mean if America doesn't get involved?
Yeah.
But both of you, I think
it would be a similar thing to the 1956 Suez crisis, for example, when Israel, France, and Britain all teamed up and went into Suez, and the United States, rather than saying, I bless thee, said, get out. And do you know, people don't talk about this much. The French and the British got out almost immediately. The Israelis stayed and lingered and lingered and lingered and refused to remove themselves. And Eisenhower got to the point where he essentially said, you either get out or I'll make you get out. And then they finally left.
But do you see that from, I think both of you come to the assessment that the United States will back Israel in whatever war they get involved in with Iran, or correct me if I'm wrong.
Eisenhower was the last president, I would say, might have given that second thought. The last one. That was a long time ago.
Yeah. In the beginning, I think they will. But, Trump is afraid of, he always talking about how the American lives were lost in the wars. He prevented all these wars. He's stopping all these wars and so forth. I think in the beginning, possibly. But as soon as Iran hit Qatar, as soon as the few forces, some of our forces are leaving Iraq now. Think about that for a moment. Some of our forces are leaving Iraq now. But whatever is left there, I think the Iranians will hit them. And I think, the American people will be in the streets. I really do believe that. We're already proven now that we're getting in the streets just from this past weekend, if you will. 7 million, I think, across the United States of America. I think Trump will probably, Trump is a wheeler and dealer. He thinks about self only. So at the end, if we start seeing Americans being killed, I think Trump will find some way to get out of it and say, hey, BB, you're on your own. I really do. Because of the fact, I don't think he wants that under him, being the so-called Biden and Obama and Bush that got Americans killed. Because let it be, be known. If this war breaks out, Iran will not hold back this time. They have no choice but to go full force and go for it.
And Jamal, that will be the moment that I will stand up on my high horse and tell John Mearsheimer and Steve Walt, see, I told you so. Because that will be America losing its power in Southwest Asia, period.
Yeah. I want to hit Russia for a minute. We have about 20 minutes. So Donald Trump apparently went with this massive bluff again. Initially, there was bone-crushing sanctions. And then he went with the whole Tomahawk missile thing. And God, I kicked myself because initially I was like, this is a bluff. I wasn't even talking about it. And then as he got to the end and Putin's response was somewhat mild towards it, I was like, okay, well, maybe they do send the Tomahawks. Okay, well, no, that's a bluff. Donald Trump has a conversation with Putin that's supposed to go for 2.5 hours. And then immediately said, we're going to have the Budapest summit. apparently Lavrov and Rubio had a conversation. The conversation apparently went nowhere. Russia's demands hadn't changed. And I guess my question is, why would the Trump administration believe at all that Russian demands would change, considering what's taking place on the battlefield? Ukraine is getting routed. And yet Trump still has this kind of odd belief that he can get something out of this other than the surrender document that Putin is effectively continuously given the US and given Ukraine. Give me your thoughts on that. I mean, what's the disconnect that's being missed here?
Well, I would always say Trump is the disconnect. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. And it's quite apparent that he doesn't have anyone in his administration that knows what they're doing. I think he has now quit listening to Kellogg, for example, which is a good thing. I think Kellogg has been put in the closet on a back burner or banned from the White House, whatever, because he's been being lied to. And apparently from Trump's recent comments, Trump finally is beginning to realize he's been being lied to. So now he's got to deal with reality, and that's going to be an extremely difficult reality to deal with, because that reality, Jamal, has not changed since the very first day Vladimir Putin launched the special military operation. It has always been the same thing. It is to ensure that there is no formidable NATO presence on the CSTO, read its primary member, Russia's territory or near it, that threatens Russia. Period. Out. If there is, I will destroy it. And that's what he's been involved in with the special military operation, and is now bringing to a resounding and victorious conclusion, with the only imponderable being whether he swings a little south and left and takes the only port Ukraine will have left in a post-war situation, Odessa, and cuts Ukraine off completely. And what the EU is doing, for example, is utterly disastrous. They have just said that they are going to let Ukraine, this is to get under Trump's skin and to get under Putin's skin even more. They're going to let Ukraine's produce, which would still be in a rump state, even quite prodigious, go into the EU with no tariffs, no increase in costs at all. Well, you got farmers in Poland right now who are saying, what the, this isn't going to work either. So the EU is participating in this disaster.
Yeah, they're going to burn that place down. Poland is not going to accept that. I mean, they were already protests about produce going into the EU.
And Sikorsky comes out about the supposed meeting in Budapest and says, if Putin overflies Poland, we might take him down as a war criminal and try him or turn him over to the court. What an idiot to think that even Putin would fly over Poland without adequate protection to blow the Poles out of the air in the first place. But second, he's got other ways to get in there. And third, I hear the meeting's off now.
Well, so there's very diplomatic language around it. Russia continues to go with the idea that, well, from our point of view, nothing has changed. But again, this is political language. This is like, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, where the message comes and the U.S. ignores the second message that comes through from Khrushchev's office. It seems that they're going with this impression of, well, from our point of view, nothing has changed. We've been not alerted to the fact that this meeting is off. This is Western media talking about it, etc. When Donald Trump mentioned it, Donald Trump pointed out, yeah, I don't want to waste my time, but then was like, well, I don't know, I'll let you guys know in a couple of days. So it could be on, it could be off. I have no clue which one this is. Initially they were going with the idea of a ceasefire. We need a long-term solution to this. Then he pivoted back to ceasefire. I believe Financial Times reporting on this, that Trump told Zelensky, Putin says he will destroy Ukraine if he don't accept his terms. But then Trump immediately backs up to ceasefire. That's what I'm saying. There seems like I'm missing something in regards to the way that Trump is appraising this.
Hey, Jamal, let me just give you, as you heard me say before, facts, opinions, assumptions. I'm going to give you an opinion. First of all, let me just give you a fact. It's something that Larry said earlier. We would not be here right now if it wasn't for no president, whether it be anybody, Trump, Bush, Biden, Obama. If it wasn't for our foreign policy, we have no empathy for the security needs of other countries, in particular Russia. It goes all the way back to after World War II and the Cold War, when, we created NATO. I think, Larry is a historian. I rely on him a lot with his unbelievable, beautiful brain that he has, that he thinks is residing, but no, it is still there. He's still so sharp. I think it was Dean Wilkerson. I think he was the Secretary of State under Truman, to help develop NATO. There's no longer a Soviet Union, but we always wanted to contain Soviet Union. We got rid of the Soviet Union. It's Russia, but we continue to expand NATO. We continue to do that until Putin said, no more. You will not have NATO right at our door. So now going back to the original question, I think what happened in that 2-hour phone call, Putin told Trump, opinion, I don't know, that, hey, listen, we can stop this, but Ukraine is not getting the Donbass region back. Crimea is ours now. Larry mentioned Odessa. I said, well, that could be under negotiation or whatever the case may be, but they're not getting Crimea. They're not getting Donbass region back. And so I think Trump took that, and I heard there was a big argument, again, but not in public this time, between Trump and Zelensky. And Trump probably told him, so we can get this, hey, here's what you have to do to stop this. And Zelensky said, no, I'm not going to do this. Probably from European countries whispering in his ear, Zelensky's ear. That's my assumption. But I think after that 2.5-hour meeting, Putin told Trump, we can stop this. We're going to keep the Donbass region. We're going to keep Crimea, and this can stop. And oh, by the way, you will not expand for sure this time NATO any further. It stops now. And Trump took that and said, okay, I'm with you, Putin. Now, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. There are some that say, hey, you can't give back land, but I will support that plan, my personal opinion, because you have Russian-speaking folks in that Donbass region. Russia see that as a security need for them. Now, there may be many people disagree with me on that, but in order to stop this war, I would agree with this, because before even Russia went into Ukraine, Zelensky was bombing that area.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was bombing that area. So I'm just giving your audience information to do their own critical thinking, because I want to tell you, and I'll say it again, I feel bad to say it because I love living in America, but our foreign policy, our government officials are corrupt.
How would they even end this war? I mean, how could Putin even accept a deal from the U.S.? We've had Minsk 1 and 2. We've had Istanbul agreements. All of these things were effectively, Minsk agreements were nonsense. I mean, they even acknowledged these were nonsense. They used a quote unquote peace deal in order to provoke a war for all intents and purposes. Knowing this and knowing that the U.S. hasn't given up this notion of primacy, how can Russia even make an agreement or deal with the U.S. knowing the previous experience in this case? We're an untrustworthy actor in the way that we operate. Is it even possible?
If you're asking me, Jamal, I would say if I were Putin and Sergei Lavrov and anyone, Dmitriev, whomever in Russia, I would not want to trust the United States any further than I could spit. And I'd have to have a really dry mouth. We just aren't trustworthy. And it's not just the situation in Ukraine. They also watched us do what we did with regard to Iran,
yes,
whom they consider an independent country under the international law auspices just as much as they are and we are. And we're the only ones that consider them a pariah. We're the pariah. Increasingly, we're the pariah. So I don't see any reason whatsoever in Sergei Lavrov's recent remarks, biting as they were in both English and Russian. And I'm told, I don't understand Russian, but I'm told much more so in Russian. It has Russian has a particular proclivity for being biting and nuanced. And he essentially said, it's over. We do not have, nor do we contemplate a relationship with you anymore. Now, I was listening to the other Russian, Dmitriev, I think his name is, talking about the tunnel under the Barents Sea and using that as a sort of enticement to better relations between Washington and Moscow. That could well be, but that would be, I think, on a purely commercial basis. It would be beneficial to both Alaska and ultimately the rest of the United States. A lot of jobs created in Alaska, and beneficial to the Far East of Russia, because let's face it, Putin has real problems in his Far East because the Chinese are taking it over. So to have a channel of other input into the Far East of Russia would be positive. But these are the only reasonable remarks, and they're commercial based, that I'm hearing between the two countries' capitals. Otherwise, I think Russia has given up on us, and that's dangerous.
Let me just add,
why that's dangerous. Oh, please.
As I said, Chief, opinions, assumptions, and facts. Let me give you a fact when we talk about trust. Fact regarding Russia. Baker, under George H.W., under Reagan, we said that we will not expand NATO at all. What did we do? We expanded NATO. There was no longer a Soviet Union. There was no longer a Warsaw Pact. Trust. Iran, we overthrew their democratic elected government and put in the Shah. Mm-hmm. We broke the nuclear deal. We supported Israel in the middle of negotiations. We supported Israel's attack on Iran. Trust. Facts.
Yeah, but don't you need trust to get any kind of deal? And I guess that's kind of the rub, right? So is the expectation that there is no deal, that the U.S. is deal incapable, especially on Russian terms? I mean, Russia just sent a memo, I guess they call it a non-paper, reiterating their terms, considering that Ukraine, Europe, and the U.S. now seem to be on the same page, where they backed up again to this idea of a ceasefire. And Russia's made it very clear, full Russian control over the entire Donbass region. They're rejecting Trump's proposal to freeze the front lines. The front line thing makes no sense. The idea that Russia is winning a war, clearly winning a war, and that they're supposed to go home and allow Ukraine to rearm, that's nonsense. And yet they continue to repeat this nonsense, ignoring the reality taking place on the ground. I guess the question for this is, A, what is Europe's angle in this? And B, is the U.S. just incapable of a deal on Russian terms? And Chief,
no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, Chief.
Let me just go back to something. When I said trust, I used examples. When Larry said, "Hey, can we be trusted?" I just used examples of why we can't be trusted. However, Trump doesn't rely on trust. Okay, but what I'm telling you in regards to Trump, he's all about self. I think that, as I alluded to earlier, I just gave you an opinion and assumption earlier that once, as you just mentioned, once Putin said, hey, Donbass, ours, Crimea, remain ours, I think Trump would take that deal because of the fact he wants to be considered the peace president. I stopped all these wars. That won't be based on trust, though, but it'll be based on Trump's, his ego. I stopped this war. Now, when you talk about America's trust as a whole, I don't know what would happen after Trump's leave office, just like we did at Iran nuclear deal. And the next administration, Trump broke that deal. And so I don't know if any deal is really about trust, but I think Trump will do this deal. And then I will tell you, what is Ukraine? What can they do? They've got to rely on Europe. I think Trump is already, he doesn't want to be a part of NATO. He told us that earlier on. So I think that'll give him the reason to back out and say, hey, you got this. Now, Trump gets a lot of pressure from internal forces that like our foreign policy, of being in control of the world and so forth. So Jamal, our world right now is in a state of confusion and it's very scary, right now.
Colonel, hit that for me. Is the U.S. deal incapable, meaning this war has to come to a conclusion on the military front?
Well, it already has, I think, come to a conclusion on the military front. We're just mopping up now, as it were. Yeah. And Zelensky knows that. And I think one positive thing Trump did was point it out to Zelensky. I think he pointed it out to him in very glaring terms, like, you're losing, buddy. or even more powerful, you've lost, buddy. Get used to it. That's probably what Trump told him. And I have a inside contact that sort of indicates to me that his language was that forceful. And we've seen before how he could be forceful with Zelensky if he wanted to be. And I think in this case, he probably was. Now, he may be trying to back up from that, but he does have a problem with the Europeans. He does have a problem with Starmer, Merkel, Macron, and Merz in Germany, and to a certain extent others, but those three principally. But they're going to be gone very soon. Merz is in deep trouble right now with his own coalition. They're criticizing him stridently in his own coalition. Macron is a dead man walking, and Starmer's never seen an opposition like he has right now. I don't know why they don't have a vote of no confidence and toss him out on his ear, probably because a lot of the parliament agrees with him most of the time. But it's a real painful situation to have to watch, and Trump's going to have to get some real character, which Trump is lacking dismally, in order to make this happen, over the lack of trust and around the lack of trust to make it happen. And Dennis is right. It's got to have some kind of commercial or deal for Trump in it before he's going to do that in a forceful way. And I think some of those things are aborting right now, but whether they'll come to fruition in time to really be effective is another matter altogether. And I don't look for Trump to make any decisive move with regard to it, as long as he does have this ball and chain of the Europeans, which he's crafted. We crafted this ball and chain around his legs. And the ball and chain is augmented majorly by the idiots in Brussels who see their jobs going away. Admirals, generals, others, they see their jobs going away.
But Trump could always walk. Like, meaning the nuclear option is the walk.
Yeah.
That seems to be off the table for him. And I guess my thing,
Jamal, I got an interview with Belgrade. I've been trying to get this for a long time, so I can log on in about a minute. So I'm going to have to leave you with my competent and capable friend, Dennis Fritz.
No, you're perfectly fine. We've come to the end anyway. We have like 2 minutes. So, but look, I want to thank you both. Both of you are fantastic. Let me bring in Dennis, just so we have a thing. There we are. Yeah, both of you are fantastic. And I guess I'll ask you, Dennis, as to close it. What do you think the Europeans have in this? Like, what's the thing for them that they hold on to this bone? I have my own ideas, but I'm curious on yours. And this will be the last question.
You know, Jamal, I just think that Europeans, led by us in the past, has been living in past history. You know, I think NATO has outlived itself. I really do. Mm-hmm. And I think it's hard for some Europeans to let that go. Like Larry said, you know, whether we like it or not, we're talking about the military-industrial complex, NATO, war, and all that. That's money. Think about this for a moment. Larry said something earlier. Generals, civilian leaders in NATO will lose jobs and so forth. And so I got to tell you, I think all this is all about power and prestige. And so I think truly, believe it or not, you know, like I said, the old school doesn't want to let this go. But Trump is right in one way. You know, NATO has outlived itself. He's never been a fan of NATO because we were donating the majority of the money, the finance, you know, for NATO. So I think NATO has outlived itself. And I think the old guard is having a hard time letting it go. But I think they will be forced to, because something you said earlier, if Trump just back out, there's really no NATO. And I think other countries, you'll see other alliances starting. So I think the only way this war is going to end is, as I stated earlier, that whether you like it or not, for Russia's peace of mind, for Putin's peace of mind, for their security needs, that the Donbass region is gone. And I think Trump told Zelensky that. Crimea is gone for good. I think Putin told Trump that, and Trump relayed that to Zelensky. And I think that's the only way the war is going to end. And if that happens, NATO countries are not going to have no choice but to support that. Because without the U.S., to be quite frank with you, there's no NATO. We're the ones that really put NATO together, and we're going to probably be the one to end it. Because I heard some general on CNN today say somewhat, you know, America cannot be trusted. Trust again. They talk about NATO countries can't trust us now. Well, I think that's a good thing, because I'm tired of us trying to be the police of the world, because guess what? We don't have the finances to do that no longer. We're in debt. We got a government closure right now, people starving. And I think NATO is coming to an end. And I think the old guard is going to have to let that go.
Yeah, that will require Trump to face down Europe, which he seems reluctant to do.
Well, because that's the internal pressures that we talked about. They're right here in the U.S. It's a world thing. Right here in the U.S., we don't want to let go of that prestige and power. We don't. You know, I always find it amazing. We want to be the leader of the world. Why? It's about control and power and money.
Well, for that, you should at least be able to keep the government open. Right. Chief, always appreciate you, man. Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson, Chief Dennis Fritz. Dennis Fritz, he's retired Command Chief Master Sergeant of the United States Air Force, former director of the Eisenhower Media Network, with the mission to promote peace and diplomacy over war. Please check out his book, Deadly Betrayal, The Truth About Why the United States Invaded Iraq. And we also had Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson. He is former distinguished visiting professor at the Government and Public Policy at the College of William & Mary in Williamsburg, Virginia. He also taught 6 years at the University Honors Program at George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And he is probably best known as retired United States Army Colonel and former Chief of Staff to the United States Secretary of Defense, Colin Powell. Chief, thank you for this. Always appreciate you, man. Be safe.
Thanks for having us always. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye-bye. All right. Love both of them. Great